This is why David Lucas is in big trouble.
And you wanted to show them the reason George Floyd got his neck nailed on. And I would have never kneeled on George Floyd's neck. I would have shot that.
If you've been watching stand-up comedy for a while, you would probably know about comedian David Lucas, who has gained a significant amount of attention online over the last few years for his viral crowdwork clips and his numerous appearances on Kill Tony. Well, David Lucas recently posted a video of him doing a joke that was considered highly offensive and tasteless that resulted in several audience members leaving the live show while he was on stage closing it out. With the video being posted online and receiving around 900,000 views, many of the clips would eventually circulate to Twitter and other social media platforms, which led to a lot of discourse regarding the joke. Some people considered it too far and voiced how they do not think David Lucas should be allowed to make jokes like this about such a sensitive topic. If you've only heard about this situation recently and you're not exactly sure what happened, then you've come to the right place. I will be explaining exactly what happened with David Lucas when he posted the clip online, the backlash he received, and who I believe is right and wrong in this situation. To get a crystal clear understanding of what happened, we need to start off by first establishing the full timeline of events. To begin with, if you don't know too much about David Lucas, he's a comedian who often dishes out some vicious roasts to audience members and even fellow comedians on Kill Tony. If you go through David's channel and look at some of the video titles, you'd know that roast humor is one of his strong suits. On top of that, I believe he has referred to himself as an edgy comedian. He also did an interview with Joke World and voiced how he believes that comedy should push boundaries.
Comedy is about pushing the boundaries. So how much is mainstream TV gonna allow you to push the boundaries? Comedians, stay the away from the Golden Globes.
Whether you think the idea of saying comedy should push boundaries is cringe or not, when you hear a comedian say that, you can probably deduce that they're not up on stage talking about airline food, and that in their act, they'll probably have some jokes that tread some deep and dark waters. That being said, on February 5th, 2004, David Lucas posted a clip on his YouTube channel titled "Controversial Joke Infuriates Crowd, Show Spirals Out of Control." The clip starts off with David being heckled by an audience member for several minutes.
Mama Dia look like a lizard with that hair.
This saying nothing with your Tyler Perry face ass.
Then after the heckler stops yelling out to David, David makes a joke about this guy showing white people the reason George Floyd's neck was kneeled on. I'll let the joke play for itself.
Try to ruin the whole show, man. All these fucking good ass white people at my show. And you wanted to show them the reason George Floyd got his neck nailed on. It's just a joke, man. I would have never kneeled on George Floyd's neck. I would have shot that. That was...
Alright, so a very dark joke. Some people were laughing, and some people were very uncomfortable. However, later in the video, some audience members start to voice how they took offense to that joke, and they get up to leave the show. Now obviously, walking audience members happens to some comedians for one reason or another, but in this instance, it was for offensive jokes. Do I think David Lucas was in the wrong for telling an edgy joke about George Floyd? Not necessarily. As I mentioned earlier, to me, David Lucas, given the fact that he has mentioned how he believes comedy should push boundaries, it's quite apparent the dude isn't going to be telling knock-knock jokes and that he probably brings some serious edge to it. Also, as an audience member who is buying tickets to see a specific comedian headline a show, I think it's your duty to research the comedian you're seeing to make sure that it's palatable for your taste. You might see a clip of David Lucas where he's debating angry white liberals and come to the realization that his comedy isn't for you, and that's a perfectly fine thing to do because the type of comedy a person likes varies from person to person. You might see one clip of him you really like, but then you might see 10 other clips where you're like, I don't want to watch this guy. You want to know what you're getting as an audience member, and if you don't, it could be the reason your night is ruined. For example, back in the day when Bob Saget was on Full House, the sitcom made him incredibly famous, and people would often see the show on TV and then want to come see him live when he did stand-up comedy in their town. However, in Bob Saget's stand-up, he was incredibly dirty and raunchy, and that would often catch a lot of people off guard because they knew him as Danny Tanner from the family-friendly sitcom Full House. So seeing him live was a stark contrast to what he was most well known for on television. Those people did not know what they were going to see, but David Lucas's fans knew exactly what they were going to see, and if they didn't know that, that is their own fault. One quick YouTube search and you can pretty much sum up exactly what type of humor you will find at a David Lucas show, and from there you can decide if you want to buy tickets or not. Spoiler alert, everybody at the show bought tickets to see him live. Where things get more interesting though is after the clip went up, it was shared on Twitter and many people talked about it and how they either liked it or hated it. When I looked at the direct response to his tweet with the video in it, the tweets are pretty split down the middle in regards to support versus hate. Like some people saying his career is over because he apologized to the family, and then others saying you can't apologize to the woke mob for comedy. However, if you look up David's name in the general Twitter space, you'll notice that it's a lot more negative. I actually saw one post, which was an audio recording of somebody calling David's family and asking for their thoughts on this joke, which is wild to me. I wouldn't bother someone's family just because they did something I disagreed with, but I'm not a piece of shit journalist, so maybe if I was, I would feel differently. A lot of people are labeling him an anti-black comedian, which I don't think is true. Making an offensive joke about George Floyd doesn't automatically make you anti-black, but some people feel differently, I suppose. Most of this bitching and noise is on Twitter though, which if you're a normal person who touches grass every now and then, you know not to take that seriously. Most of the people crying on Twitter aren't buying tickets to comedy shows, so it doesn't really matter what these mouth-breathing mongoloids think. Given the nature of the internet, most of these people within 1 week will stop caring and find some other thing to be angry about. David Lucas also said recently that he apologized directly to George Floyd's family members who were upset, but that he is not sorry for the joke, which I kind of understand. I don't think he had to apologize if he didn't want to, but that's his personal decision. I saw a video on Victoria Advocate where a woman named Emma talked about the David Lucas clip. I want to use this as an example because I think this point of view is held frequently because I saw quite a few people also making this point on Twitter. She says how she thinks the George Floyd topic should be off limits for comedians. And I'll just go ahead and say it, there is no topic that is off limits for a comedian. That being said though, you must know that if a topic is incredibly sensitive or dark, that in order to pull it off, the cleverness has to outweigh the offensiveness. Usually the audience will decide, but of course every audience is different, so what is too far and too offensive to one audience might be perfectly acceptable for another audience. Given the nature and the sensitivity around George Floyd, that's going to be an incredibly hard joke to pull off, but it's not impossible. I think there's a large portion of people who believe that some topics should not be joked about, and for those people, you probably shouldn't buy tickets to see a guy like David Lucas live. You are absolutely within your right, even though you're wrong, to believe that there are topics that are off limits, but please have some fucking empathy for people who are actually able to go to comedy shows and laugh at jokes like that. As mentioned previously, he's vocalized his beliefs on how comedy should push boundaries, so he's certainly not for everybody, and that's fine. The best part about comedy is you can be wildly successful by marketing to only 1% of Americans, because that's still millions of people who will support you and buy tickets to see you. Here's the thing, the George Floyd joke did not make me laugh. It didn't even make me smile, but I respect the attempt he made to make light of such a dark topic. One of David Lucas's biggest comedic influence is the late great Patrice O'Neal, who famously said this on Fox News in regards to jokes about sensitive topics.
So I'm gonna speak as the expert on funny. Funny people should just be left to trying to be funny.
What if they're not funny?
Then you made a mistake.
You think it's okay to try to make jokes about rape?
I'm diabetic, I make fun of that. I'm a victim. I might lose a toe. The attempt is what I'm trying to fight for. The joke may or may, funny jokes and unfunny jokes are come out of the same birth. That you don't know if anything is going to be funny. You should attempt to be able to make anything funny.
The attempt to make a joke should always be allowed, but to pretend that a fucking comedian can just immediately know if something is funny or not, or too far or not, without trying the joke on stage is ridiculous. Part of making the joke funny comes from actually telling the joke to real people and a real audience of people in different cities, different states, and even at times different countries. As a nationally touring headliner comedian who sells out comedy clubs across the country, David Lucas can afford to walk an audience on a dark joke. Given the outrage and attention that this generated for David, it's likely that this is going to help his ticket sales even more and that more people are going to see him live after this incident. So in sum, the whole situation probably did nothing but help David Lucas grow his brand as a comedian, because the people who are offended by dark jokes will not be buying tickets to see him, and the people who do find it funny will now be coming to see him live. What do I think? While I didn't find the joke funny for that matter, I understand that a comedian doesn't need to make me laugh with every joke, and that this is on brand for David's style of humor, so I'm not surprised. If you're watching this video and you think that what David Lucas said is unforgivable and off limits and that he's not funny, and you want to try and make an impact, here's what you can do. You can not buy tickets to see him live, and you can shut the fuck up. I'm not even trying to dunk on you, by the way. If he's a provocateur in his comedy, and his entire brand is based on some people getting offended at his humor for being too far or too dark, then talking about him and complaining is going to do nothing but give him more attention and further help the people who are into that brand of comedy find him and support him. Even though I'm neutral on this topic, albeit I'm always slightly biased towards the comedian, I just gave you a blueprint to not supporting a comedian you think is too offensive. Stop talking about them, don't buy tickets to see them, but luckily for David, it doesn't really matter what you do because the dude sells out comedy clubs across the country. If this joke truly is too far, his ticket sales will start to diminish and crumble, but that's unlikely to happen given the mass amount of attention he's seeing online. Even if he's not funny to you, he's funny to plenty of other people. And I know this might make some of you cry, but his audience isn't just white people. There's plenty of people of all races who can go to a comedy show and enjoy the show because they're an adult and they realize that not every joke has to be taken as a serious statement. All in all, this is why David Lucas is in big trouble. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the video to the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to support the channel by liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and turning on post notifications down below because that's a free way to help the channel out, and it also helps the community grow brick by brick. I want the YouTube family to hit 100,000 subscribers this year, so please help me out with that by subscribing to the channel. If you want to support the channel further, you can check out the Patreon page down below where you can get some exclusive benefits like getting to see videos early, getting to see exclusive content like a podcast I recently recorded in my set at the Tampa Improv. You also get to play a direct hand in the direction my channel takes, and you get shoutouts every single video. Shout out to Jason Murray, Crossblocker, Ethan, Thomas Gill, and Karsten, the newest patron, for supporting me on Patreon. Anyway, hope you guys love the video. Make sure you take care of yourselves, your friends, your family, and your loved ones. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.